I want to tell you about something you've probably felt deep in your heart, though you may have never given it a name. It's that moment when a seemingly harmless conversation ends, but you're left in silence with a wound you can't quite explain. Someone insulted you not by accident, but with unmistakable intent. They saw the pause in your eyes, they felt the shift in the room, but they kept talking anyway. They said what they said as if it meant nothing. Then they walked away, leaving you not just hurt, but tested. You sat there not because you didn't know what to do, but because something inside you was torn. Torn between the urge to speak up and the instinct to protect your right or dignity. Questions raced through your mind. Do I deserve this? Should I say something? If I stay silent, will they think I'm weak? And yet, you didn't respond. You didn't argue. You didn't get angry. You didn't try to prove anything. You chose silence. And that decision didn't come from surrender. It came from a deep awareness that the moment you react, you hand them the remote control to your emotions. You understood that silence isn't weakness, it's power. A quiet kind of strength that doesn't need to be loud to be heard. A strength that forces others to sit with the weight of their own behavior while you keep your peace. People on the outside might think you lost, that you were being passive, that you let the insult slide, but they don't know you were doing something most people don't have the courage to do. You let time, stillness, and karma speak on your behalf. And while they're still laughing, thinking they've won, you've already become someone they'll never be able to shake. People often say that sometimes others hurt you unintentionally, without even realizing it. But the truth is, most of the time, hurtful words don't come from carelessness, they come from cold, calculated intent. Because before someone speaks, they've already thought about what they're going to. Before they let those sharp words slip out, they've already considered the impact. And the moment they see your face freeze in pain, they keep going, not because they didn't notice, but because they wanted you to feel it. They know exactly what their words will do. They know that the tone, the look, the timing, everything is designed to cut into your pride. But they still go ahead. They still speak, still act, still cross that line without flinching, because this isn't a mistake. It's a choice. And what makes them even more dangerous is their hunger for a reaction. They're waiting for you to snap, waiting for you to lose your calm, waiting for you to come chasing after them, asking for fairness or demanding to be understood. Because that's when they have control, not just over your actions, but over your emotions, your energy, and your inner peace. This is something anyone who values logic and clarity must see for what it is. If you keep believing that people only hurt you by accident, you'll keep giving them the benefit of the doubt. You'll keep trying to forgive, to fix what was never yours to fix. But when you realize that disrespect is a deliberate act, you stop reacting unconsciously. You step away from their emotional games. You use silence as your proud refusal to participate. That silence, though it may carry no sound, says everything. I see what you're doing, and I'm no longer playing along. There's a strange truth about human nature. When someone deliberately tries to hurt you, what they want most isn't forgiveness, it's a reaction. They want you angry. They want you thrown off balance. They want to see you lose the steady version of yourself and become small, fragile, and unguarded. Because when you react, you admit they still have power over you. But the one thing that confuses them most is when you do nothing. When you say nothing, no anger, no defense, no tears, when you simply look at them, then walk away, that's the moment everything shifts. Silence is not weakness. On the contrary, it's the highest form of self-control. You don't stay quiet because you feel nothing, you stay quiet because you refuse to give your energy to what doesn't deserve it. You stand still not because you're stuck, but because you're protecting your inner core, a place no one enters without your permission. And it's that silence, that stillness that starts to disturb them. Suddenly they're not sure if they've won or lost. They can't read your mind, can't tell what you're thinking, feeling, or preparing to do next. The less they can predict, the more anxious they become. Their mind, which they thought had power over yours, starts turning in on itself. What they thought was an attack on you becomes a mirror to their own emptiness. Because the truth is, people don't fear confrontation, they fear the silence that follows when their attempt to hurt you fails. In that silence, a mirror appears, one that reflects back their insecurity, their cruelty, and everything they've been trying to hide. And you, by holding on to your silence, don't just protect your dignity, you leave behind an emptiness in them that they can't fill. Because nothing haunts a cruel person more than the calm indifference of someone they couldn't break. When we're hurt, our instincts scream for justice. We want to strike back. We want to make them feel what we felt. We want to explain how wrong they were. But what most people don't realize is this: revenge doesn't make you stronger, it makes you just like them. The wise, the ones who've trained their mind through reason and discipline, don't let themselves be dragged into the mud. They know when you react just to get even, you're letting them invade your inner world a second time. And so, no matter how sharp your words are, no matter how much you make them fall silent for a moment, you've still lost. Because you've allowed yourself to act from pain instead of composure. The rational person doesn't need to prove anything. They don't need to put anyone in their place just to feel respected. They know if someone can't see your worth in your silence, they don't deserve to hear your voice when you speak. That's not arrogance. That's a quiet kind of freedom, the kind that no longer relies on other people's behavior to determine your value. You don't stay silent because you're letting it go. You stay silent because peace is more important to you than winning. You let time take care of things. You let karma do its work. And you keep going steadily, kindly, living in a way that no one can throw you off course. Because the wise understand something simple yet profound: retaliation feeds the ego, but silence protects the soul. You could respond to every insult. You could explain yourself until there's nothing left to say, trying to prove you deserve better, trying to make them understand. But what will really be left in the end? A heated argument, a half-hearted apology, or just the heavy exhaustion of being pulled into someone else's emotional chaos. The wise don't do that. They don't prove themselves with words, they prove themselves with how they live. They don't fight to be right, because they understand. Truth isn't something to argue over, it's something you show. When someone insults you, they think they brought you down. They believe they're standing above you. But when you keep walking, keep growing, keep rising, eventually they shall be the ones looking up. Success, however you define it, peace, freedom, clarity, or achievement, will always be the strongest answer. It doesn't beg for acknowledgement. It doesn't need applause, because it speaks clearly even in silence. And when you finally stand in a higher place, living a life they once believed you could never have, you'll understand something powerful. You never needed to speak up. You only needed to keep walking. Every step forward you take, every accomplishment you build, every time you rise without reacting, that is the response louder than any words. Because in the end, it's not what you say, it's who you become that makes people regret ever doubting you. One thing you'll learn as your mind becomes stronger is this: reacting is a choice, not an obligation. You don't have to respond every time you're disrespected. You don't have to defend yourself against every rumor. And you certainly don't have to confront every person who treats you poorly just to feel worthy. Because not everyone deserves your energy. Some people don't insult you because you're wrong, they insult you because they can't stand your calm, your freedom, or your light. They use sharp words not to have a conversation, but to provoke a war they hope you'll walk into. And if you react, you've stepped right into their trap, the chaos they're drowning in. But the wise, the ones who've learned restraint, understand that not reacting isn't weakness. It's a declaration, a clear statement that says, I'm not here to teach you how to respect me. I'm here to live a life so grounded that your insults, your mockery, your dismissiveness can't stop me from moving forward. You don't have to bend down and pick up every stone they throw. You're not building your life out of retaliation, you're building it with clarity, discipline, and direction. And when you stay silent in the face of small minds, it's not because you're powerless, it's because you've already categorized them. They are not worth it. Silence in that moment is no longer passive, it becomes selective. You're speaking through your absence. You're responding by walking away. You're teaching others that to receive a response from you, they must first earn the right to it. People often think that when you're disrespected, reacting with anger is strength, but in reality, that's exactly what your offender is hoping for. They want you to blow up, to lose control, to strike back so they can twist the story, justify their behavior, and flip the narrative, turning the victim into the aggressor. But when you go silent, everything they expected collapses. They don't know what you're thinking. They can't understand why you're not reacting. They can't predict your next move. And it's that uncertainty more than any yelling or shouting that unsettles them the most. Your silence isn't empty. It's a powerful echo chamber, forcing them to sit with themselves. With no distraction from your rage, no script to follow, they're left alone with their actions. And that silence starts to eat at them. They begin to wonder, did I go too far? Why aren't they saying anything? Are they planning something? And the absence of reassurance becomes a mental prison, each minute more uncertain than the last. Because deep down, they know the truth. As long as someone is still reacting, they still care. But when someone goes quiet, walks away, and never looks back, they've already moved on. And nothing is more terrifying than realizing you've lost the power to affect someone. The person who hurt you doesn't fear your words. They fear your calm. Because in that calm, they become irrelevant. They don't fear your anger, they fear being forgotten. Like they never existed. And the most painful truth for them is that it's already happening. There's a unique moment in the journey of maturity, a moment when you realize you no longer crave validation. You no longer need praise to know you're on the right path. You no longer look for acknowledgement to feel valuable. And you no longer need to prove yourself to anyone, not even those who disrespected, doubted, or dismissed you. Because once you're strong from within, you understand recognition is no longer a reward, it's simply a result. People who live with reason and inner depth don't chase applause. They don't lower themselves to beg for acceptance from those too blind to see them clearly. Instead, they live according to their values, whether others notice or not, whether others approve or not. They don't need to shout, "I deserve respect." Because every steady step, every kind act, every moment of calm restraint is the loudest affirmation of all. And the truth is, the strong don't need a spotlight. They don't need an audience. All they need is a clear direction, a grounded mind, and an unshakable belief that I am living right, and that is enough. No one can take your value from you if you stop placing it in their hands. No one can truly insult you if you no longer give them the power to define who you are. Strength doesn't mean you've never been hurt. True strength is being hurt and still choosing to rise, even when no one's watching. If you've ever been insulted, if you've ever been dismissed, misunderstood, or pushed out of places you once believed you belonged, know this: you are not alone. And don't think you need to prove anything just to make things fair again. Because real justice doesn't come through explanations. It doesn't come through reactions. And it certainly doesn't come from how others choose to see you. It lies in the way you choose to live with calm, with clarity, and with a refusal to be pulled into small games. When you choose silence, it's not because you don't know what to say, it's because you no longer need to say it. When you walk away, it's not to avoid conflict, it's to leave the mud to those who choose to stay in it. And when you continue living with kindness, steadiness, and depth, you answer the world in the most powerful way possible, not with words, but with your presence. You don't need someone else's recognition to know your worth. You don't need to retaliate just to prove you're not weak. All you need is to keep going, to walk through the storms without letting your heart turn bitter, without letting your eyes grow hard, and without letting your inner peace be shaken. Because in the end, it's true, the loud may get attention first, but the quiet endure the longest. And one day, when all the words have faded, when all the insults are long gone, it will be the way you lived that the world remembers most.